Hello, my fabulous juniors. So today we are going to keep it rolling with Unit 5. I am going to post today both the lesson for Wednesday and the lesson for Friday. So if you want to jump ahead and get all your work done that I'm going to assign Friday now, go for it. So you can just keep chugging along, or you can save it and do it on Friday. But you will have access to both of the lessons, Wednesdays and Fridays, today. I'll have separate videos for them, but just so you know. So go ahead and get out the paper, whatever you've been using to take notes, set them up. Today we are talking about classification and the way that we classify biodiversity. This is day one of that, so it's a kind of a two-part lesson. And then I want you to pause this video and answer that question. How many species do you think exist on Earth? Give me a number, a ballpark number, see if you're right. And then also, I want you to write down, how do we classify species? How do we know that the scientist in Texas talking about mountain lions is talking about the same thing that a scientist in Spain calls jaguar? How do we know that? So how do we classify those species? So pause this, make that answer, write that answer, and then come on back. Okay. Oop. So go ahead and pop into office hours if you want to chat about this stuff. If you have any questions about what I'm teaching you, please, please, please come to office hours. Not a ton of people are coming, so it's lonely in there. But come to office hours so that I can see you and say hi and help you out. All right. So here is our plan for today, our guiding questions. What is the point of long, incomprehensible scientific names? And why do biologists want to group animals and plants together? So again, we're on topic 5 out of 6. And then why this matters in life. We must categorize life on this planet in order to make sense of the insane amount of species that we have on Earth. Without categorization, scientists could not study or write about the diversity of life that they see on our planet, and they wouldn't know they're writing about the same species. And then, I don't know, my meme for the day. When you're studying biodiversity and you learn that animals are cooler than humans. Because they are. They're so cool. So, how many species are there on Earth? What was your guess? Was it close to 8.7 million? It is estimated that there are 8.7 million different species on Earth. That is a crazy amount of species. Yes, 8.7 million species. Now, how many of those species, of those 8.7 million, do you think we've discovered? If you said 1.2 million, you were right. So we have only discovered about 1.2 million species. So we've only discovered, I think, 1.2 out of 8.7. I did it last time I talked about this. I think it's like 14%. We have barely scratched the surface on the number of species that exist on our planet. Oh, I knew I wrote it down somewhere. So that means we've only discovered about 14% of all life on Earth, and I bet you could take a guess as to where a lot of the life that we have not yet discovered is. Do you say the ocean? Yeah. Okay. And I like showing you guys this because I just think it's interesting. It shows the percentages of the described species. So basically, this is the 1.2 million species that we have discovered. And if you look at that, 22% of the species that we've discovered are beetles. That's crazy. Flies are 9%, wasps are 8%, butterflies, moths 7%, other insects 13%. You guys can read. What blows my mind is that vertebrates are only 1% of the species that we've discovered. But if you think about when you go to the zoo, basically every single animal that you see is a vertebrate. So we think of biodiversity in the terms of these vertebrates, but they are just a tiny slice of the pie of the number of species that have been discovered. I was thinking the only non-vertebrate I can think of at a zoo is like, or an aquarium, is like a jellyfish. Okay, so this is where you might start taking notes. You do start taking notes here. So, what is biodiversity? Biodiversity, the definition of biodiversity is the variety of life in a given area measured by the number of species present. So great definition to write down. Pause if you need. Why is biodiversity important? Biodiversity is important for this main reason. Diversity equals stability. The more biodiversity there is, the more stable the ecosystem is going to be. It is like an insurance policy. This is also something good to write down. Here is my example for you all, and I like to use Takis to to explain biodiversity. Let's say that the only thing that you eat is Takis. That is it. You will only eat Takis. And then the Takis factory goes out of business. You are basically out of luck. If the Takis factory goes out of business and you only eat Takis, what's going to happen to you? You're eventually going to starve, right? So this is why it's important to have a diverse diet and to eat a lot of different things, especially if you're an animal living in an ecosystem where you can't just go to the store and buy your food. The more diverse your diet is, the more likely you're going to be stable. Same thing goes for an ecosystem. The more diverse an ecosystem is, the more different species it has, the more stable it's going to be, meaning that if one of those species goes extinct or if one of those species faces a really, really big problem, the ecosystem is going to be able to survive and bounce back better than if the ecosystem is not very diverse. So what I want y'all to do is pause my video now and go watch this video that I have linked on Google Classroom. I don't want to waste playing it here, but it's a really great video to watch right now before we jump into the rest of this. So please pause, go watch the Why is Biodiversity So Important TEDx, TED Ed talk, and then come back here. You're back. I hope you really enjoyed that video. I love how it shows how diversity helps create a really stable ecosystem, and comparing the rainforest to like a coral reef, where a coral reef, if that coral dies, the whole ecosystem falls apart, versus in a rainforest where there's a lot more diversity and a lot more ties, one species going extinct isn't going to cause the entire ecosystem to fall apart. Great video. Okay. How do we organize species? If you need to take a note here, you can, but you might not need to. It's kind of up to you. So use your own understanding to help you here. If there are 8.7 million species and we've discovered 1.2 million, how are we going to organize all of these? Like, what do scientists do? Think about it. What they do is they organize them using a system that groups them by similarities, and we call that system taxonomy. So this is where I said if you need to take a note here, you can, but we're going to define taxonomy on the next few slides. So because there are 1.2 million species that have been discovered, we've got to have a way to talk about them. So we group them into groups by their similarities, and we call that grouping taxonomy. So what is taxonomy? Taxonomy is the science of defining and naming groups of biological organisms on the basis of shared characteristics. It is essentially our biological organization system. You have probably seen this list of taxa before. You've probably seen domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. So a lot of this taxonomy stuff might be a review for you. So take the notes that you need and then just keep on moving. So what is the point? Why do we need to use these scientific names? Why do we have to use this crazy name for a crab, Xanthias lamarcki? Like, why is it necessary? There's a couple reasons why we do it. First of all, scientists all across the world of all languages and all nationalities have agreed to use scientific names to make the study of biology and biodiversity much more simple. That way, a scientist in the US and a scientist in France know they're talking about the same thing if we're using scientific names. How do these scientific names work? They use the binomial system. What does that prefix bi mean? Hopefully you said it means two. And nomial means name. So it literally just means to name, naming system. So every single species on the planet has two names. First, it's its genus, capitalized, and then its species, lowercase. For example, Xanthias lamarcki is a crab. There is a hierarchy of taxa, meaning that domain is the largest and species is going to be domain is the least specific or the largest category, and species is the most specific or the smallest category. A classification group normally, most of the time, contains all the species that have evolved from a common ancestor. And we're going to see that when we do a little grouping activity in a minute. But basically what this is saying is that if you look at all of the species that are in the same family, it is highly likely that all of those species share some kind of common ancestor. And then last but not least, classification helps to identify species, and it also helps identify characteristics shared by all the species within a group. It is just an organization system. If you organize your closet by color, it is similar to that. You are organizing species by similar characteristics. So we could not learn about taxonomy without giving our main man, Carolus Linnaeus, a shout out. So Carolus Linnaeus invented the field of taxonomy and the system of binomial nomenclature, which is just that two-name naming system. His name was actually like Carol Linnaeus, but we gave him a Latin name because of course we did. So sometimes evidence has caused scientists to move species from one group to another. That has happened more often with the new DNA evidence, when we've been able to code the DNA for thousands, if not millions, of the species that or the 1.2 million species we've discovered. By coding its DNA, we have moved some species, but a lot of it stayed the same. And like I said earlier, every species has that Latin name, just like we gave Carolus Linnaeus his two-name Latin name. Every species has a two-name Latin name composed of its genus and its species. So before I show you how we classify organisms, you're going to do a little bit of classifying for yourself. So I want you to look at the 10 animals on the attached document. I only had space to put 5 here, so make sure you look at the document. And I want you to, just on your piece of paper, on a scrap piece of paper, sort them into groups. You can sort them into these groups based on whatever characteristic you decide. It is completely up to you, but sort them into groups and have some kind of reasoning for why you did that. And again, the document you should be looking at looks like this. So we have a cheetah, a zebra, a frog, a red-eyed tree frog, a horse, a cat, a red salamander, a dog, such a cute dog, a fox, a pig, and a giraffe. So I want you to just look at that, sort those animals into groups, and base those on whatever characteristics you have. So pause me and then come back here and I'm going to give you the answers. You're back. So a lot of people, when they sort these animals, I've seen kids sort them by domesticated animals, by wild animals, by animals you might see on a safari. I've seen people sort them by animals that walk on 4 legs. I've seen people sort them by, oh, well, the frog and the salamander are amphibians, and the dog and the cat go together because they live in houses together. So lots of different ways. But now I am going to show you how they are sorted in the field of taxonomy. So our first group we have is the feline family, or Felidae is the Latin way you say it. But the cheetah and the cat, they are in the same feline family, which should make a little bit of sense. Second one, we've got the Canidae, or the Canis family. This is like the family of dogs. So the fox and the dog are together in that same canid family. Canine is what you can think of when you see canid. And then the salamander and the red-eyed tree frog are in the same class. They are both in the amphibia class. They're both amphibians. A lot of you guys probably put them together. And then we have the horse and the zebra. They are together in the same Equidae family, or Equus, if you ever heard of that. That's kind of a word for horse. So the zebra and the horse are in the same Equidae family. And the one that kind of blows people's minds is that the pig and the giraffe are in the same order. They are both in the Artiodactyla order, because look at their feet. They all have, they have an even number of toes, but let me make sure I get this right. Hold on one second. They have 5 toes, like we all do, but they are in the same order because they are in the order of organisms that balance on 2 of their 5 toes, usually the 3rd and 4th toe. Pretty interesting. But yes, the giraffe and the pig are in the same order. So hopefully that was a fun little activity for you. You didn't really need to take many notes during that time, just as long as you wrote down your groupings. So how do we classify organisms? We classify them by similarities. We figure out the similarities a couple of different ways. Now we use DNA to figure out those similarities. We also look at the structure of the organism, and we also look at that organism's behavior. All of these things together show evolutionary relatedness, which helps us see that organisms in the same groups are likely share a very recent common ancestor. Okay, so let's jump into all of the different domains. So domains, what I would do if I'm, for you guys taking notes right now, is to actually draw this triangle, this upside down triangle, and fill it in, and then you can kind of add notes branching out from the triangle. That would probably be the most helpful. Domains are the largest group. There are 3 domains of organisms. Try and take a guess at what they might be. We actually learned about 2 of these in Unit 1, one of the first days. If you said eukaryotes versus prokaryotes, good job, you're totally right. So there are 3 domains. We have the eukaryotic domain, then we have the eubacteria domain, which is a type of prokaryote, and then we also have the archaea domain. So the eubacteria and the archaea domains, both of these are prokaryotic, and then the eukaryote domain are all eukaryotes. So let's see if I can draw. Whoop. So these are prokaryotes. They are still separate domains. Archaea are what we call extremophiles, if you want to write that. Extremophiles. They live in super extreme environments like hydrothermal vents. But they are prokaryotes, meaning they do not have a nucleus. They also, prokaryotes, do not have a nucleus or any membrane-bound organelles, but eukaryotes have a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. You are a eukaryote. Oh my gosh, that writing is so bad. I'm sorry, y'all. It's hard to write on my computer. You are a eukaryote. Plants are eukaryotes. Fungi are eukaryotes. You have a nucleus. So just make sure you remember that. Okay. Awesome. So you've got the 3 domains. Make sure you know that eukaryotes have a nucleus and prokaryotes don't. Okay. And what's super cool is that all 1.2 million species that have been discovered fits into one of these 3 categories, which should make sense to you. All living things are made up of cells, and all cells are either eukaryotic or prokaryotic. So everything that we have discovered that is a living thing fits into one of these 3 categories. So that's all your notes on domains. And now let's jump into kingdoms. Kingdoms are the next largest group. There are 6 kingdoms of organisms. And the domains basically split into these smaller categories called kingdoms. And again, same deal. All 1.2 million species that have been discovered has to fit into one of these 6 kingdoms. We've never discovered a species that does not fit into one of these 6 kingdoms. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it has not happened. Here are the domains, and it branches out to show you how they connect to the 6 kingdoms. So this is another really good note if you want to add it. So our archaea is still basically called archaea for the kingdom. Sometimes you see it written as archaebacteria. You'll have to know those interchangeably. Our eubacteria domain is still a bacteria kingdom. So their names don't change from domain to kingdom for archaea and bacteria. But then we've got the eukaryotes. Okay, so you know that plants and animals are both eukaryotes, so that should be a pretty easy one to remember, in that the eukaryotic domain splits into plants and animal kingdoms. We also have a fungi kingdom and a protista or protist kingdom, so I would make sure you know those 6 kingdoms. For right now, that's all you're going to have to know. Next class, we're going to have to know some of the further breakdowns for plants and animals only. But as long as you know the 3 domains and the 6 kingdoms right now, you're golden. Okay, so let's jump into the modern classification system. How does it work? This is what it looks like. You have probably seen this before. You have domain, which we just learned are eukaryotes, archaea, and eubacteria. Then you go into the kingdoms, which we learned the 6 kingdoms: bacteria, archaea, plants, animals, fungi, and protists. And then the kingdoms will further break into phylums. Phylums will break down into classes. Classes break down into orders. Orders to families. Families to genuses. And genus to species. Once you get all the way down here to species, you should be talking about one species. So we start at domains where you have all 1.2 million species, and you get specific enough to where every single species of those 1.2 million has their own special name. Okay, here is some other good pictures. Pick one that you really like and draw it. You probably have already drawn this, which is great. And then you just might want to add this little side note because this is really helpful. All the way up at the top where we talk about domains and kingdoms, these categorizations are really general and contain many organisms, versus as you go down the list and get smaller and smaller, down here at the species level, it's super specific and contains only closely related organisms. And then I also like this picture because it's showing you how there's there's 5 different kingdoms in this picture, although there's more than that. And then it shows you how, okay, there's this cheetah is going to fit into the animal kingdom, and then it's going to fit into the chordata phylum, and then it's going to fit into the mammal class. Guess what? We're in the mammal class with that cheetah. But then this is where it changes. We are not in the carnivore order. We are in a primate order. So this is where us and the cheetah would split and have different ideas. Then that cheetah is going to be in a certain family, the feline family. Or sorry, not cheetah, panther. I'm sorry. And then that panther is going to be in the panther genus, and then eventually its specific species of panther. Here is an example of what this looks like for a human if you are interested. So we are in the animal kingdom, the chordata phylum. Chordata phylum just means that you have a spinal cord. The mammal class, the primate order, the hominid family. We are the only living organism in the hominid family. There are extinct organisms that were in the hominid family, like Homo neanderthalensis, which we learned about earlier, but no longer alive. Then we are in the Homo genus and the sapien species. Okie dokie. So you've got to remember this classification system. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You've got to know the order that it goes in. Good thing for you, I have got a mnemonic to help you remember. So you don't have to remember domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species by yourself. I always learned it this way. Dear King Philip came over for good soup. There's King Philip and there's his good soup. If you can remember that, then you can just write down the first letter on the side of your test or whatever you're doing, and hopefully always know. Dear King Philip came over for good soup. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Make sure you know that. If you want, and it can be fun, come up with your own DKPCOFGS. Come up with your own Dear King Philip came over for good soup. Maybe you can come up with something that you're going to remember much better than the one I came up with. So take a minute and come up with one. If you want, comment on the post with some really good ones, and maybe we can pick like the best one and have the class use it. Okay, so now we're just going to do a little bit of practice. You should be done with notes. Now we're just practicing. So based on this classification graphic, dogs and wolves are in the same. Pause the video, take a second, figure out the answer, and then come back. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is find the dog on this map. Found them? And find the wolf on this. Found them? Are they in the same species? No. That wouldn't make sense, right? Are they in the same genus? Yeah, so that should take you straight to your answer. They're B, in the same genus, but not the same species. Okay, Now we're going to do some quick checks. Obviously, y'all, I can't see which finger you're holding up, but we're going to run through it because it's a really good way to test what you know. So basically what I want you to do is think about which group has more species, meaning which group is less specific. So we're looking for the groups that are going to be higher up on that pyramid because the ones at the top are going to be less specific, meaning there are more species in those groups. So, kingdom or phylum? If you said kingdom, you're right. Good job. What about order or class? Which one is going to be more specific? Or sorry, which one's going to be less specific, have more species? Order or class? Which one's going to have more species, meaning it's less specific? Class is correct. Class, because it's higher up in that pyramid. Genus or species, which one is less specific? Genus. What about order or family? Order. Now, notice the questions change. Which group has less species, meaning it is more specific? Genus or family? Genus is going to be more specific because it's at the bottom of that triangle. What about kingdom or species? Species. Species is way more specific than kingdom. Kingdom is just like plants. Species is like what particular plant. Family or class? Family. Order or family? Family again. All right, awesome. And one last quick check before you guys don't have to listen to me talk anymore. Based on the classification graphic above, the leopard and the European otter are in the same. So it's the same question as the previous one, just different animals. So pause, figure out the answer, come back. Okay, European otter is here, leopard is here. Are they in the same species? No, they are different animals, so we'd hope they're not the same species. All right, now let's look at genus. Are they in the same genus? Nope, not again. Are they in the same family? Nope. Are they in the same order? Yes. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. They are in the same order, but they are in different families. So C would be the correct answer here. Okay. So here is your independent activity for today. I know that this video is way longer than my other ones. I'm sorry about that. But that's why this activity should not take you long at all. So go ahead and do this independent activity. You're basically going to complete the classification activity Google form. Essentially what you're doing is you are telling me the domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Here. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. I know that says realm, should say domain, but I just thought it was a nice picture. For your 2 favorite animals, and then you are sorting 4 other animals, so it shouldn't take too long at all. And usually I would never ever say this, but a great website resource for the taxonomy of different species is Wikipedia. And I'm going to show you right now how awesome Wikipedia is for finding species. I'm going to pull it up right now. So if you go to Wikipedia and you type in, let's see, what's my favorite animal? Let's type in sloth. You type in sloth and click on it. Literally right here, they always have the scientific classification for any animal. And so it's a really, really great, resource to use. What's difficult is that there are more than just one species of sloth. So if sloth's your favorite animal, you got to pick specifically. Like here, a 3-toed sloth or a 2-toed sloth. So I don't know, I'll pick the 3-toed sloth. You click on that and then you're going to start to get it way more specific to what you need to see. But Wikipedia is great for this. So do that, turn it in. And then the last thing I want you to do is when you feel confident, go on to Google Classroom and do exit ticket 5.3 for classification. If you need help or want to go over any of this material, I will have office hours this afternoon from 2 to 3 p.m. And am more than willing to help y'all. And then here's my little joke. You say tomato, I say Solanum lycopersicum. You say potato, I say Solanum tuberosum. And it's Carolus Linnaeus. Can't tell if biology or foreign language. I don't know. Can't tell. It is a foreign language. It's Latin. Okay. I hope you guys have an awesome, wonderful, fabulous day. Make today awesome, y'all. See you at office hours.